sight. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. I feel fine.
Oh, Mr. Armstrong, what a great song. The End of the World as We Know It by REM. I would recommend the kids, before they even go, maybe to take a look at some of that video, because it has some great imagery that might help them think about what's going to be happening as we progress through this first quest. So take a second to introduce yourself, Mr. Armstrong.
Mr. Armstrong at Davis. At this point, most of the students should already know us and so forth, but I'm really excited to do our first screencasting computer slide chat with some images here today.
Yeah, so let's get rolling on this. First thing, obviously, I'm on the right of this picture. You see, Mr. Armstrong, we're obviously confused. This is our first time trying this, so we're going to see if it works out. So let's go ahead and roll along with the question, maybe, why did we start with that song, The End of the World as We Know It? Why don't you take a second and kind of give me a little quick thought process on that?
Well, I agree with you. It would be good for the students to go and look at the look at the video, because it just kind of shows the mass chaos of like trash being everywhere, and it just being almost in this sense like a dirty place or a dangerous place, and just not orderly. Everything's just kind of not really where you want to be.
Yeah, it's chaotic. Well, let's move on to slide 2 and kind of give them a quick overview of things we've already learned and just kind of make sure we're on the same page. So what we got now is we're going to move on to page 2, and on page 2 we should be able to see, as soon as I can click to page 2, I've got multiple tabs opened here. All right, we're on page 2, and we should be able to talk a little bit about this. What we want to highlight is the glory of Rome and how wonderful Rome was to live in at the time. Now, of course, there were bad things about Rome, or there were, problems, but there were obviously a lot of great things occurring in Rome. So why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about what you saw as the most important things that Rome had going for it?
I see the most important thing that Rome had going for it was order, and was some structure, though not necessarily as good and as perfect as it could be to in today's norms and so forth. But they had civil law, they had laws written down for people to follow. They had created this wonderful republic, and they had these great achievements of being able to supply their citizens with water, and transportation was easy for their soldiers to be able to get from point A to point B to provide protection. And all of these things, I feel like, all kind of go under the same umbrella of order and strong government and strong republic. Would you have anything to add with that?
Well, I just was taking a look. That whole idea of civil law, I think, is what you're getting at. That idea of structure and order in society, and that people know that they are protected. The roads are providing the military an opportunity to move from one place to another and keep order in there. So people live in relatively a calm time. It's not America today, but it was a calm time where they felt protected. That Roma Pax, everything's in good shape. It's a time of peace. People are feeling comfortable. So it was a time to really focus on living, not surviving. And I think that's going to be a big change for us. Is life is no longer going to be about living. Life is going to turn to be about surviving. And that's what we're going to see in the Middle Ages. It's really about, can you survive? So this glory of Rome is kind of all these things you mentioned, along with all the enduring impacts that we've studied already, from the small things and scientific things and the learning that's going on. All those things, as we move forward, we'll see are kind of going to disappear. So that's all going to end. So let's move on to the next. Oh, you wrote something.
Right. Life is about surviving, because I really like the way that you said that. I think, and I can't spell, I think that that's a really good point to bring up, that it is all about surviving, moving on. I like that. Good job.
So let's make sure we make this clear to the kids. Rome was not this. So I'm crossing it out. Rome is pretty much about living life. As we move forward, life is going to become about surviving. So let's move on to the next page. We got a glorious Rome. So on page 3, we're looking at an object that we did as a daily assignment. So we can kind of run through this quickly. But you'll notice on the right side of the image here, and I'm drawing, and I'm going to change my color so it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to use the blue. So if you draw anything, could you just pick a little different?
Yeah, I'll use red.
But over on this side is your barbaric tribes. So we have the barbarian tribes. We talked about what the word barbarian might mean, so you need to think about that. And over on our left are the citizens of Rome. And what you notice missing from this picture is men. And really the only men I really see from Rome is here. So the question becomes, where are the men? Well, the men are probably out defending the borders, and yet the city of Rome is collapsing. As we look at this, I think the image is trying to show you the vulnerability of the people, that there is no one there to protect them. You know, there are these children laying in their parents' arms or hugging their parents, or in this case their moms only, trying to be protected, but there's no match for what's coming. The world as they know it is collapsing. And in the background, we can see the flames. And we see these flames coming off buildings. And we know that what they've stood for thousands of years is coming to an end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The picture is great. And the next picture on the next page also kind of shows a little bit, might have a little closer image of the destruction that's being done to the buildings. I think that picture does a great job of showing the the destruction and so forth in the terms of the people's eyes and how it has effect on them. And maybe the next picture does a little more with the structure, but it is a definite mind shift or a cultural shift where everything just becomes chaotic and everybody's so worried about surviving. It's really the only thing that matters at this point is staying alive.
Well, and if you look, I think it's important to focus on. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep deleting and not having the right cursor. My apology. These buildings back here are really important because they represent the government. They represent democracy. They represent civil law. They represent order. They represent structure. And we're seeing them on fire. And they represent learning. You know, you see the Greek and Roman architecture combined with the columns and the pediments and the porches and all of these things. It's all being lost. I mean, the symbolic idea of it burning is that it's gone. It's gone forever. So these people are kind of going to forget about all this stuff because the world as they know it is ending. And chaos and all those things we talked about in the glory are going to disappear. So I will forward now to your broader picture, and you can speak to that a little bit if you'd like.
I mean, just the same thing that you were saying. You can just see more. I mean, I guess you can just kind of see more of the flames hitting other buildings. You can see like you said, the government buildings and the symbolism behind this. With the tree burning and obviously more fire and so forth. So just a different image, same story. So yeah, we can go ahead and move on.
So then what happens next? Once all of these things collapse, the Roman Empire, as we know, collapses. People run homes. Their families are being destroyed. Things are in chaotic nature. The army deserts. People are leaving the military. They're trying to rush back to their families. And so you end up with this huge empire with no one in control and with chaos erupting everywhere. And the barbarians now are going to create these small kingdoms. And you can see some of those kingdoms on there. You know, there was the kingdom of the Visigoths you had noted on here. But these small kingdoms are going to come out of this empire, and no longer are you seeing one massive organization controlling society. Trade's going to drop. Ideas are going to drop. Cultural diffusion is kind of stopping because all of a sudden we're seeing the collapse of a massive empire, and there's no one there to take its place. That leads us to then the Vikings, and we only have another minute or two before we run out of time today. So that takes us to a little bit about the Vikings. I guess they're not on that slide, so I'll stay on this one for a second. The Vikings begin to raid and pillage villages, and we talked about in class how that creates fear. There's a great video on this quest that you want to watch by Amy Burvell that kind of talks about that. But there's this sense of fear everywhere. And can we live until tomorrow? That is the fundamental point that we're trying to get across to you, is their ideas of life and death change drastically. But I guess on the next slide, there might be one chance for hope. And that's the one thing that kind of unites all Europeans together, and that is the spread of the Christian religion. And we're going to see that as we go through the Middle Ages, that the idea of the afterlife and what is provided in heaven kind of gives people hope. Even in a chaotic, fearful world, there's hope that things will get better when you leave this world, which is kind of a sad commentary, I guess.
Yeah, with the fall, and you were talking about how the survival becomes the biggest concern and so forth. That's really the driving force. that'll lead you into the next quest and so forth. So we won't talk about that, but just really want to reiterate that the Christian religion at this point is the only thing that, nearly the only thing that people have to be happy, that they can be happy about, or they can see some potential to make life a little bit better, even if it's in the afterlife. So do you want to jump to the next slide and talk a little bit about the blog post?
A little bit about your blog. And in your blog and the directions you're required to do, the first thing you have to keep in mind, this is a blog post that you're going to write as though you are a Roman citizen watching Rome collapse. So you're going to describe the collapse and what's happening. What are you feeling? What's your family like? What are you seeing happening around you? This blog post will be found in Quest 2. And so as Quest 2, as a middle-aged person, you will role play, you'll be a knight, you'll be somebody. In that second blog post, you're going to find this. And this is going to be your only knowledge of what Rome was. So the more descriptive your blog post is, the more information you talk about the beauty of Rome and the greatness of Rome and what you fear is happening, the more it will lay the foundation for all of your other blog posts as we travel through the Middle Age Web Quest.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add with that is, guys, for some of you who really enjoy writing and get into narrative writing or get into storytelling writing, it may not be a bad idea just to kind of maybe look at the blog posts, maybe for Quest 2, 3, and 4. That way you have just a brief idea of what it could be, and that way you know for sure what extra detail you're adding, because it will only improve your story and make this whole quest and journey of the quest a little more enjoyable for you.
Right, and the only other piece I would say is make sure you read the blog post questions that are in the quest. There's a series of questions we try to get you to answer, so we try to guide you into thinking. Try to be these people. Try to walk in their footsteps. If you were alive and you were watching your city and the life you were leaving being burnt to the ground and people being slaughtered all around you, what would your emotional state be? How would you look back on the past of the life you've already led? And what hope would you have? Those are the kind of things. We want you to empathize with the people you're learning about, because these are real people, and their story is nothing more than our story. So we're trying to understand ourselves by understanding these people, 1,200, 1,500 years ago. So with that, I want to say this is our first time using this software and using this product, so hopefully we did an okay job. I think we learned some things that we'll try to do differently as we progress. But had a great time chatting with you, Mr. Armstrong, and I hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much. Looking forward to doing this a little more often, too.
Well, let's hope it works well. Have a good day.
You too.